The Out of Bounds Show podcast is presented by Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. Your golf game starts with Edwin Watts Golf Shop.
WRKS Pickens Jackson.
Are you ready? Yes!
Now live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the BankPlus Studio.
You are listening to
Mississippi's #1 sports talk show, The Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. Streaming worldwide live on the Out of Bounds radio app and on your radio at ESPN 105.9. The Zone.
Oh, man. Dave Bartu will join us on the Corona Premier Guest Line at 9:30 today. We'll talk coaching staff moves, SEC and otherwise. Kevin Steele to Miami. It's a big get for Mario Cristobal. Watch out for the U and the Hurricanes. We are the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We're brought to you by the Bone-In Filet at Kessler Prime in the Renaissance. KesslerPrime.com to make a reservation. We're streaming live for you on the Out of Bounds radio app. We built that app for you. So wherever you are, you can listen to the show. If you're in the shower, have it right there on the sink or the vanity. If you're walking in the neighborhood, if you're on the treadmill at Fondren Fitness, or if you're pumping weights at Fondren Fitness, wherever you are. If you're in your law firm, CPA firm, manufacturing plant, wherever you are, you can listen to the show, the Out of Bounds radio app. We're streaming on thezone1059.com too. Want to thank Will Hall for joining us, head football coach at Southern Miss. And, man, they got after it in recruiting and transfer portal and adding talent to the roster. Southern Miss will eventually end up in the Sun Belt, which is a great move. I agree with Coach Hall. Jeremy McClain, Dr. Bennett, among others, that the move to the Sun Belt brings the electricity, the energy, and the spark that you need. And it's a great move. It's a really good move. It's going to help you in Hattiesburg, and it's going to help you on the road. And that's a good thing. So I'm excited for Coach Hall, and we followed him since he was I knew he was at North Alabama as a player, but he did a great job as a head coach at tough places to win, West Alabama, West Georgia. Ended up at Tulane, OC, and then Southern Miss hired him. Yes, they had a rough season, but they had a lot going against them. And if you give him a little time, they're going to win, and he's probably going to line up perfectly with you going to the Sun Belt. So I'd go ahead and strap in, support them, get behind them. And also, we've talked about this the last 15 years, the population boom in the Pine Belt, Hattiesburg and Laurel, the wealth boom. All of that is it's a good thing for the state of Mississippi, but it's a good thing for Southern Miss. I think they can capture more of that with their move to the Sun Belt. I mean, you look at rooftops and all that, from Summerall to Hattiesburg to Laurel and all the other pockets. Better education than it was years ago. Booming middle class, upper middle class, affluent, all that money flowing through that area. And as you know, that so many of those teams are now, 6A and 5A, and that's a good thing too. We love to hear from you on the Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line, 601-707-3750. Twitter handle at BoBounds. And the Ag Up Equipment. It was Mississippi Ag. It's now Ag Up Equipment. And that's where you go to get your John Deere tractor to manage your land. Ag Up Equipment text line is 601-885-3776. True Maroon texted in and said, not to be dramatic, but I'd take a bullet for Coach Hall. He's fired up, and that's good. That's good.
That's not dramatic at all.
You needed some. You need some juice in that program, and that's what they're doing. Hey, congratulations to Mississippi State and Ole Miss winning in basketball. It's hard to win, and Ole Miss goes on the road and takes down the American gangster, Will Wade. They got up 25 or whatever, and LSU made a run, cut it to 13 at half. Ole Miss did what they needed to do in the second half. Ruffin was awesome. So was Rodriguez coming off the bench and dropping 15. Brooks is a handful, and so Ole Miss wins. LSU's now lost 5 of 6. Ole Miss has won 3 of 4, and Ruffin can play, and they're adding some other pieces to the puzzle, so to speak. They've still got a long way to go. I don't know really what the goal would be, but one thing I like is you want to win as many games as you can. You don't want to quit. Mm-hmm. And watching that game last night, I mean, Ole Miss took it to LSU from the tip. And, I mean, when you go into the PMAC and you take it to LSU from the tip, that's huge. And LSU had nothing for Ole Miss coming off the bounce either, which I was impressed with. And then, Mississippi State, well, they did the same thing. They got up big on South Carolina. And Molinar is special. He is a super player that can do so many different things. He's a really, really good college basketball player. I don't expect him to hang around because nobody does, even if he doesn't go to the NBA. But he dropped 20, 10 for 10 from the free throw line.
That's incredible.
And Garrison Brooks had 18, and Garrison is a mid-range guy that a lot of people. He's a matchup night, not for everybody, but he's a matchup nightmare. And then I think when you look at Rocket Watts. We mentioned Rodriguez coming off the bench, but what I thought, when you get a little juice off the bench from Rocket Watts, that was big for Ben Howland and the team. Now, Mississippi State, I know this is crazy. State basketball fans have lost their mind, and I don't know what to do about it. I just, it's like, I can't believe we lost a game. You play 35 games. You don't think you're going to lose a game? You were never that – I mean, you had a nice program at times. You did some fun, amazing things. Richard Williams and Rick Stansberry accomplished some great things. Oh, nothing. Richard Williams had no budget.
Yeah.
None. I mean, Larry Templeton didn't know how to fundraise, much less run an athletic department. Richard Williams did it on, some Band-Aids and some dirty socks. Stansberry did a marvelous, wonderful job. And I know people like to focus on the bad, I guess, and how something ends or whatnot. You take start to finish. Rick was wildly successful, maybe the most successful basketball coach in the history of the state. Obviously, Richard went to 2 Sweet 16s and a Final Four and won an SEC championship as a head basketball coach too, which is remarkable. But the bottom line is, all right, it's a Q1 win. It's South Carolina just won 3 games in a row. They've won 13 games. They went into the game 4-4. You're 14-7 and 5-3 in conference. If you talk to Mississippi State fans, you would think you're 2-6 in conference.
7-14 overall. Yeah.
I mean, you have a chance to go to the tournament. Is it a little bit of an uphill battle? Yes, but is it like there's no way I have to fly to the moon today? It's not there. And Molinar. Now, I didn't understand Molinar's minutes last night, but Ben Howland's, I thought going in to the 12-minute break, 8-minute break, and 4-minute break, I would have captured some more leg time for Molinar, and I didn't understand there was a time where there was a dead ball with 12 minutes and 50 seconds left, and I thought, hey, put him down on the bench, ride it out to the TV timeout, let him sit another 3-4 minutes even during the TV timeout, because you're trying to buy minutes and times and him off his legs because he's such a special player. Now, it will be unfortunate if you don't go to the tournament with that kind of kid and that kind of player, but there's a lot of hoops left to be played. May want to hang in there a little bit. We are the Out of Bounds Show. Dave Bartu will join us at 9:30 on coaching staff hires. Good morning. Welcome in.
You're listening to the Out of Bounds Show, fueled by Fleetway Market. Whether you're on the road to the tailgate or headed up to hunting camp, stop by Fleetway Market to fuel up the car and the cooler today.
Salt kill snails, not players.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever, Smoot. Dave Bartu will join us at 9:30 today. Dave Bartu, little maniac, roaming around in Oregon thinking weird stuff. You know. Hey, have you seen my 535 Excel spreadsheets? Love that guy. Dave Bartu, College Football Matrix. He'll join us at 9:30 on the Bucked Up Energy Drinks guest line. Buck, look for the buck. You get that, right? Deer Antlers Buck. Bucked Up Energy Drinks guest line. Zero sugar. Get you ready for the day. Big day of sales calls. Nurse practitioner. Got to be on your feet. Right? If you're in the delivery business, transportation business, or if you're studying for a big test, maybe you're making a presentation, Bucked Up, find the buck on the can. Bucked Up Energy Drinks guest line. Good morning. Welcome in. We are the Out of Bounds Show. Blake mentioned this earlier. I'm glad he reminded me. We are rolling out a new podcast, our Whiskey 61 podcast. And I'm very, 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 very excited about it. It will be where you find all the Out of Bounds stuff for now. We'll see how all that, goes. And so the Whiskey 61 podcast is something I've wanted to do for a while. And we'll have guests from the world of culinary, entertainment, music, culture, and entrepreneurship. And it will be fun, wide-ranging, freewheeling conversations. And we've already done 1, 2, 3 of them. Yeah. So Robert St. John, restaurateur, author, philanthropist out of Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Y'all know Crescent City Grill, Mahogany Bar, Ed's Burger Joint, El Rayo, whatever you want to do there. Now the Capri in Fondren. Movie theater, bowling alley, tiki bar, restaurant, Tabella, all that, along with the books and all that kind of good stuff. Robert St. John, we're doing 4 episodes with Robert from really childhood all the way through opening the Capri and Extra Table, his amazing charity. Episode 1 dropped last Friday, Blake?
Correct.
Okay. Episode 2 will drop today, and we're also going to drop Rocky Patel this week because Rocky alluded to a little bit of the NFL playoffs and stuff like that. And Rocky, for those of you asking, okay, Rocky Patel Premium Cigars, you can find those at Havana Smoke Shop. It's an unbelievable cigar line. It's an amazing story of another entrepreneur who was not in cigars. He was an entertainment lawyer in Beverly Hills, and one thing led to another, and he starts Rocky Patel Cigars in 1999, and now it's, I don't know what he's doing a year, $50 million in cigars or whatever. I think he told us over the weekend that they had 35 to 40 million in inventory right now. But, he had to do the whole go down to Honduras and Nicaragua and all that stuff and figure it all out, and he has. And he also told us a great story about playing golf with Phil Mickelson, President Obama, Justin Thomas, and Ricky Fowler. And then another time where he played golf with Michael Jordan. And Rocky Patel with Rocky Patel Cigars is also, Blake, a huge football fan.
Yep.
He went to the University of Wisconsin in Madison, and he's a Badger, and he is a Green Bay Packer.
Yes, he is.
Loves Brett Favre, loves Aaron Rodgers, loves Vince Lombardi, loves Bart Starr, and Charles Woodson.
That just proves you can be great at one thing and be terrible at another.
Are you taking a shot at
Yeah,
Rocky Patel?
Yeah, I said it to his face. I told
You
him I was a
really
Cowboys
did.
fan.
You know, you couldn't help but throw up on yourself while
Yeah.
we were doing the interview Saturday and letting him know that you were a Dallas Cowboy fan.
We had fun.
And boy, he looked at you like he had just smelled a skunk.
He took a shot at Jerry Jones, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah, well, I'll leave that as a secret because it's worth listening to the podcast to find out what he said about Jerry.
It's
But
fantastic.
It's very funny. No, look, Rocky was awesome. He was very cool. Getting to meet him and talk to him, and so it's always interesting when you meet someone what they will be like compared to maybe what you have personified them as in your head, right? Because anyone with fame, anyone who's of notoriety, you probably have an idea about that person, whether it's true or not. You know, you've painted a picture in your mind about who that person might be.
That's true.
And Rocky was very down to earth. We had him on the phone one time, but that's different.
right.
That's not the same as
right.
as being in person. He was very kind. I met him before you weren't there yet when he first got there. I got to meet, and he was very not, spoke to me like I mattered, which I don't, but that was very nice of him to do.
I think you
And
matter.
so, well, thank you. I appreciate that. But you know what I mean. Like
Our listeners, Ag Up Equipment text line, please let Blake know if you think he matters. 601
it's going to backfire.
885-3776.
This is a terrible idea.
Go ahead.
No, but you know what I mean. Like in the grand scheme of things, for Rocky Patel, like we just mentioned the people he played golf with. I don't matter to Rocky Patel. Like he's played golf with presidents and the greatest people in their industry, like
Michael Jordan.
Yeah, Phil Mickelson, like people like that, And we're the story about who he met when he was on vacation. People like you know what I'm saying? Like
good.
like there's just things where it's like
That was
like,
a great story.
I matter to this show. I don't matter to Rocky Patel. All right. So it was nice of him to treat. He was very open, amicable. He's very nice to talk to. It's just you don't have to be. There are a lot of people who aren't that way, are they, Bo? Yeah, we can't say that either. I knew that was going to backfire.
So, yes, to answer, we were in a beautiful cigar shop in Starkville, Mississippi, called Spring Street Cigars. It's where the old Mugshots was. All right, downtown Main Street. That's a beautiful building. They did a great job. And Blake set everything up, and that is the perfect, spot. That is the perfect place to interview a Rocky Patel. Because, we're in these cool leather chairs. We're both smoking cigars. Blake got the Russell's Reserve bourbon bottle right there in the table in between Rocky and I.
Y'all were even drinking it.
Yes,
yeah,
and we just had a blast.
It was a great time. It was very cool.
We just had a blast.
Very cool.
And then I got to go to dinner with him that night.
Yeah, jealous of that.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
And met a wine rep from Oxford. This guy knows Todd Wade. And Todd Wade is a friend of mine, a friend of the show. We've had him in studio. Played at Ole Miss, NFL. Played for the Washington Commanders. And did you know that?
The Washington Commanders.
No, I'm going to text Todd and say I'm
oh gosh.
Todd Wade and Fred Smoot played for the Washington Commanders.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Anyway, the point is this guy, we hit it off, and this guy orders a bottle of wine.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. This French Bordeaux or something, and it is phenomenal. Well, Rocky comes up. So we all meander over to dinner from the cigar shop. And Rocky's kind of feeling out. He kind of walks into this really cool room, private room that this guy had reserved Saturday night after we interviewed Rocky Patel and whatever. And he's like, "What are y'all drinking?" And this wine rep's like, "This," and he's, "I'll take some of that." And delicious juice to go along with some. You know what he ordered? So funny. All right, so Rocky Patel is from Wisconsin, but lived in L.A.
Yeah.
Now lives in Naples.
Yeah.
Right. But he's traveled all over the world. He told the story on the pod about traveling 300 days a year to get Rocky Patel cigars up and running. Right. There was an entree that was a fried chicken dish, and so on. And he ordered it. He was like, "Man, that's delicious." I'm talking about like really, really, really good.
That's funny.
So, yeah, it was cool. We had a great time. Whiskey 61 podcast. Right now, it will be where you go to get all the out-of-bounds stuff. And we're excited. We'll drop the Robert St. John interview today in the next few hours. What will that be, Blake? Like noon? All right. The episode 2 with Robert St. John will be at around noon today. Go to Apple Podcasts, search the Out of Bounds Show, or Podbean, or Spotify. Straight ahead, Lane Kiffin dropping some knowledge on name, image, likeness. This is great audio from Lane Train. Coming up next, SEC Insider Hit. You're listening to Out of Bounds on 105.9 The Zone, ESPN.
The Out of Bounds Show podcast is presented by the Premium Cigars at Havana Smoke Shop. Visit their 2 locations, I-55 in Jackson and on the Res, for your premium cigar needs. Only at Havana Smoke Shop.
Oh, wow. Good morning. Your SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. Yes, location at Fortification is still there for you. Been there for over 30 years. Right there in my old stomping grounds, beautiful Bellhaven neighborhood. Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. Also, new surgery center and clinic. Lakeland Drive, Flowood. Any age, any sport, any injury, they've got you covered. MississippiSportsMedicine.com. I don't know. We'll have to check on the Ruffin injury. Speaking of sports injuries, all of them that we discuss are brought to you by Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. We hope that he's okay. I mean, he's a little baller for Ole Miss at guard from Jackson, Mississippi. Had a great night last night. People were saying he was walking around. I don't know what that means. And we'll see. We hope that he's okay and doesn't miss a beat. And we'll go from there. But our sports injury discussion is always presented by MississippiSportsMedicine.com. And, hey, you know, Mississippi State, you know, MSU basketball fans won't give Howland an inch. You know, I thought the broadcaster last night, what's his name? Jimmy what? From Arkansas? Anyway, I should know this. I've only watched him 9,000 times on TV. And he was a broadcaster, then took the women's job at Arkansas, and then went back to calling college basketball. But he said, yeah, they're without their second best player. Now, some of you would argue that it's Garrison Brooks after Molinar, but whatever. Tolu Smith, your best post player, is not playing and really hasn't played most of the year.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want to consider that. Those of you, you know, you're already. How about this? I wouldn't be miserable. You won. Enjoy it for a day or two. It's okay. It is. You've got 14 wins. It's hard to win. You've been without your second best player, according to somebody who knows a lot about basketball, for the overwhelming majority of the year. You've got a chance to make the NCAA tournament. And when people tell me that Ben Howland's awful, I immediately tune you out. Like, I'm moving on. Like, if I'm at a cigar shop. I mean, if somebody says something that dumb, I'm really good, especially at this age. Pivot, I can just walk away from. I mean, Wendy's always said I can walk away from a comment, but, I mean, that's just dumb. Now, if you want to say, hey, Ben Howland should have won more, and here's why, okay. But they've got a good basketball team. They've got to win a lot of games down the stretch to put themselves in position. And I don't even know where the SEC basketball tournament is. Is it back in Nashville? It may be. Seems to be housed there, which I like. And look, I lived there growing up in the 80s and the 90s. I went to 9,000 SEC tournament games and got to see some great, great players from all around the league, including some guy named, who's my favorite player, SEC player, basketball of all time? I'm gonna let you guess. I said it yesterday or Monday.
His name was it Nick Irvin? What was that guy's name? Nate Irvin? What was that? No,
Charles Barkley.
Yeah, I know.
Barkley's my favorite player.
He's your boy. He's the one you got to interview.
I was obsessed with Barkley, and I was crushed when Jordan beat Barkley in the 93 finals.
Suns. Yeah.
Because I love the Suns because their uniforms, and two, I loved Barkley.
They were fun. And Barkley, from different angles, his head looked like the sun with the way the lights hit.
That's a good point.
So he really embodied his team. This year's SEC tournament for basketball is for men's basketball is in the Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida.
Okay, yeah. So they're doing like 4 or 5 out of 5 or 6 years in Nashville, and every now and then they'll drop it in Tampa.
Isn't Tampa where? No, they did it in like St. Petersburg
Rick
that 1 year.
Stansbury won it in Tampa.
Yeah.
He beat Tennessee and Bruce Pearl.
That's right.
And Mississippi State's, I think, last SEC tournament championship in 2009, I think it was, with maybe Barry Stewart and Jarvis Bernardo, among others. But Rick went down there and beat a good Tennessee team in the finals to punch his last ticket, I think, in the tournament.
I believe that's correct.
And then everything kind of unraveled the next year when they were 16-5 and in the top 20 the next year. And then, the whole Stansbury, Renard, all that went down, DeBoss, Moultrie, whatever. Anyway, point is, Ben Howland has done you may not think he's done a good job or a great job, but he's done a pretty damn good job this year. And I would hold on. Let's see how this thing plays out. But they're 14-7, 5-3 in conference. They're not 2-6 for our listeners.
As it feels sometimes.
And some of you are upset. I see these posts and stuff about the way they won last night. Dude, get a life. Winning's winning. In business, sometimes we get an inch today. Sometimes we get a foot. Sometimes we get a yard. It doesn't have to be pretty. It's not pretty on this. I mean, how we got here is not pretty. Winning's winning. I don't it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't have to be this mosaic nonsense that you've got, in your head. Congratulations to the Ole Miss and Mississippi State kids, young people who competed their tails off last night and won. How about that?
Can I ask you a question? Because this brings up an interesting point that I feel like we have danced around before at different times on the show over the last 4 years, but maybe we've never presented it this way. We talk about how the Jordan, Tiger, Brady kind of trifecta over the last 30 years has not only changed the way we look at seasons as a whole, but I think I'd argue even now it's changed our ability to enjoy the journey of the season.
I agree.
We don't, as fans, like you just said, and like we had Mansplain text us earlier, if you read the boards, it looks like Mississippi State lost by 20, not won by 20, right? Ole Miss fans, like, trying to enjoy their season, you lose the Sugar Bowl. Like, you still went 10-2, right? Mississippi State years ago losing the Orange Bowl. Well, you still won 10 games. Like, we've lost the ability to enjoy the moments, which I think as fans has made us more bitter, and all we do is chase championships now, and those even don't seem as enjoyable as they used to be. So I wonder if there's been
we're spoiled.
If we've just moved so far away from the point.
And we have so much access.
The point is enjoy each win on the way.
Absolutely.
And whatever happens at the end, happens at the end. But like
only one team wins it.
Yeah. The inability to enjoy these high points, I think it's a bad thing.
And like I receive a text here on 65 teams get in the tournament. They don't, Blake. Do you know how many automatic qualifiers there are through conference champions? It's not 65 bids. Like when somebody texts me that, I realize they don't know anything about college basketball, but they're ripping Ben Howland. And I get we're not a basketball state. 1% of the people were coached well. The overwhelming majority of coaching in this state is awful. And I understand that most people don't know the game. But, it's not 65 bids. It's not. I mean, it comes down to a couple dozen bids. And so, or a few dozen bids. How about that? And it's harder than you think. You like to look at the overall number. It's not that many. And it's hard to win. We're not really focused or committed to that sport. And we're much more focused on football, baseball, and softball in the Sun Belt. I know there's some pockets that love some hoops. And yes, I went back and forth last night and watched Auburn and Bama, and saw that packed arena, and that's cool too. What Bruce Pearl has created there. So hang on and let's just see how this thing plays out over the next 4 or 5 weeks.
And that's a small win. Again, it's like with what State kind of did with Stansbury for a minute, what they did with Vic Schaefer, which was weird. The Bruce Pearl thing, like schools that aren't basketball schools can have small windows, but the commitment quotient to become like a North Carolina, a Kentucky, a Memphis, those are totally different things in basketball. So you're never going to be that. You got to enjoy those small windows when they happen.
Yeah. Well, congratulations to Ole Miss and Mississippi State and all the players who played and competed last night. Last time I checked, Blake, South Carolina and LSU have good players too.
Yes, correct.
So, all right, let's switch gears. Blake, before we go, do we have time?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have plenty of time.
All right. Dave Bartu will join us at 9:30. We're going to drop the Kiffin audio in about 5 minutes or so. Most of you know, unless you've been under a rock, that Brian Flores was a New England Patriots assistant under Bill Belichick, got the Miami Dolphins job, did a really good job, had no business in getting fired after going 9-8 this past season, and was in the hunt for other jobs. All right. Brian Flores is a minority. And most of you know about the Rooney Rule in the NFL, named after the Pittsburgh Steelers Rooney family owners, right? And that is the Rooney Rule requires teams to interview minority candidates as head coaches throughout the NFL when there's an opening. All right? And Brian Flores should not have been fired from the Dolphins, one. But Brian Flores is also suing the NFL, all 32 teams, excuse me. And then there's some other layered stuff in there with the Denver Broncos and the New York Giants, and also Bill Belichick's text messages.
Ooh.
In which Bill didn't. Brian Flores is not mad at Bill Belichick, but because, as somebody said, Bill Belichick went to bat for Brian Flores to get the Dolphins job, okay, because he was an assistant at that time. But Belichick basically texted Brian Flores when he thought he was texting Brian Daboll, who was also an assistant under Belichick at one point, but was the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills the last couple of seasons. And Belichick texts Brian, and this is, bear with me, he texts Brian Flores and says, "Sounds like you have landed. Congrats." Flores texts back, "Did you hear something I didn't?" Belichick, "Giants!" Exclamation point. Flores, "I interview on Thursday. I think I have a shot at it." Belichick, "Got it. I hear from Buffalo and New York Giants that you are their guy. I hope it works out if you want it to." Flores, "That's definitely what I want. I hope you're right, Coach. Thank you." Then Belichick realizes he texted Brian Flores, not Brian Daboll, and he says, "Sorry, I blanked that up. I double-checked and misread the text. I think they are naming Daboll. Sorry about that." Flores, "Thanks, Bill." So there we are. And this is a big deal. Now, Blake, there was an attorney that weighed in that's kind of specializes in this.
Yeah, and so what he...
Do you have that?
Yeah, he's a Florida... he works at Florida University. He teaches law at Florida, sports law at Florida.
Florida Gators? University
Florida
of Florida?
Gators.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct. And I'll have to... of course, I don't have it right in front of me. I wasn't looking that way. Basically, what he said was...
I'll give you a minute.
That this claim by Brian Flores, where he's suing not only the NFL as a whole, which would be Goodell and all 32 teams, but specifically also the Giants and the Miami Dolphins, in which he alleges
and the Broncos, I think.
In which he alleges the Dolphins owner Stephen Ross made an offer to pay him $100,000 per loss in 2019 to improve their draft selection. Essentially, what this attorney says is that this claim probably is light on legal standing, but it does bring to light an important issue that the Rooney Rule is not working. So whether or not Brian Flores wins this lawsuit is definitely up for debate. And
it's
will
more
be debated.
pressure to make sure that the Rooney Rule is legit. And
well, they're going to have to redo it.
Yeah.
Whether Flores wins or loses is irrelevant. This will force the NFL to change how they're operating.
Right.
Because the public sentiment right now...
So I guess they'll add to it?
Yeah, or adapt it or redo some of the things that
An
were
addendum,
in it. Yeah, something like that. This isn't it's a weird stat. Brian Flores went 5-11 with a terrible roster in 2019 when the owner wanted him to keep losing to get a better draft pick. Then he went 10-6. Then he went 9-8, in which they won 7 straight games almost to end the season. I think they lost their last one.
In the NFL, it's virtually impossible to win 7 straight games.
Well,
Go ahead.
especially when you've lost 7 straight. You don't turn it around.
Right.
It doesn't. Teams are, what's the parcel? You are what you are.
Yeah.
That is not, that doesn't happen. So Flores is like, he got treated incorrectly.
No
both
question.
by the Dolphins and maybe by the Giants. Because the issue at hand is not that Bill Belichick leaked that Daboll was getting hired. The issue is that
he had not interviewed.
Belichick is confirming this issue that if the Giants decided on Daboll prior to interviewing Flores, that could be a violation of the Rooney Rule.
Right.
Because that means they were only interviewing Flores for the ticker tape and not to actually interview him. And if you're not a real candidate, it's not supposed to count. So that's the thing. And so at the end of the day,
and if that is the case,
yeah. Then the Giants made a huge mistake.
Well, it's a huge mistake by the Mara family that is revered within the NFL.
Yeah. No, it's a bad deal. And if there's any validity to or ability to prove, because maybe it's true, but you can't prove it, I don't know. But if you can prove that Stephen Ross, owner of the Dolphins, is paying a head coach to lose, that is a big deal. Because
it's a bribe.
Well, what a terrible look for, like, you can't have an owner of an organization going against the spirit of the game that you play in that way. Paying a coach to lose games, you can't do that.
There's tanking, and then there's basically kicking money to a head coach.
Yeah.
Almost probably off the record.
And to cost people their careers. That's what you need to remember.
Right.
That Brian Flores losing is going to cost a right tackle his career. It's going to cost a linebacker his career. It's going to cost a quarterback, a running back, all of those.
Or another coach on the staff.
Exactly. Somebody's got to get fired because somebody has to take the blame.
Right.
So it's a very messy situation. At the end of the day, what it does is a lot like when you have officials being called into question in the NBA, you can't have the integrity of the game up for debate.
Right.
So the NFL has to nip that in the bud quick. If there's any evidence, real hard evidence that the Dolphins owner was doing that, you could see a change of ownership going on in Miami, which could be crazy. We've seen it. We've seen the precedent set in the NFL and the NBA.
Yeah. Sterling with the Clippers, and who am I missing?
Oh, it goes way back. Look, Dan Snyder's under pressure right now.
He is
to potentially have to sell the new Washington Commanders. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a messy situation.
So we'll continue to monitor this as, there's a long way to go. But the law professor basically said he didn't believe that there was a lot of
legal he's wondering if there's any legal standing in terms of, like, can Brian Flores actually get anything back for this?
Right.
Here's the other question. A, did Brian Flores end his ability to ever coach in the NFL?
God, I hope not.
B, how interesting that this is what makes this such a story, too. Bill Belichick being at the center of this is so interesting.
Yeah.
Because he's the greatest of all time.
Sure.
And this is like the first unabashed, you screwed up big time moment in Belichick's career, really. Even though he didn't make a mistake in the sense of legal, you can't, this whole thing slipping out through Belichick's text messages, that's as juicy as it gets in the NFL. I mean, this is Bill Belichick we're talking about. On the day that Brady retired.
On the day Brady retired.
Incredible.
Hey, did you know Tom Brady retired?
Who?
Golly. His accomplishment. Do you think anybody will ever get to hit?
No. Yeah. No. There are franchises who can't get there.
Right. Though they're franchises that can't win one.
He lost 76 games in 22 years, and there's franchises that don't have 76 losses in the last 5 years.
Yeah, the Jets.
10 years. It's terrible.
Goodness
gracious.
gracious.
He has more playoff wins than some franchises have playoff appearances.
Right.
That's insane.
That is insane.
That's not realistic. That's not real life.
All right. Do we have time for Kiffin?
Yeah.
All right. Let's switch gears. Lane Kiffin is kind of carrying the torch, being more vocal on this name, image, likeness stuff, and talking about the transfer portal and the money and the uneven playing field. Even after landing Jackson Dart in the number one transfer portal class in the country, I think it's another call to action to get another round of funding in that name, image, likeness fund. But here is Lane Train, Ole Miss head coach.
I am proud of that, of our staff just saying, okay, here's the rules that are kind of in portal and trying to figure out throughout the end of the season with all that going on, and, just trying to do it better than anybody else does it. So I'm proud of that. We don't have the same funding resources as some of these schools do, for these NIL deals, and so it's basically like dealing with different salary caps. We now have a sport that has completely different salary caps, and some of these schools are, 5-10 times more than everybody else of what they can pay the players. So I know nobody uses those phrases, but that is what it is. So I joked the other day, I didn't know if Texas A&M was going to incur a luxury tax, and how much they paid for their signing class.
This is after landing the number one transfer portal class. I mean, Kiffin is, while I think he's happy with the haul and what they were able to do with name, image, likeness to be able to land the number one transfer portal class, he is still obviously extremely concerned and wondering where it's going to go and if eventually will we have a cap? I mean, I don't even know the legalities of that. I'd have to get an attorney on or something. I mean, can they?
How do you cap something that's not a regulated market?
That's what I'm. Yeah. I don't know.
You can't. Here's what this is.
I mean, do you really think you're going to have an NIL cap?
No. What would have to happen is you'd have to have the Power Five come together and create a governing body that then they all sign under. You have to. Agree
they can't
to
even.
Regulated.
They can't get anything done in Indianapolis as far as the NCAA.
No. You'd have to have either the NCAA, which all these schools are already signed under an agreement with, or a new body would have to come together.
We could get at some point, but we don't have it right now today.
Well, and we know academia and bureaucracy moves quickly, so it'll be soon.
We've been talking about this forever.
Yeah. What it tells me is that, no, there will be no regulation until you make a regulatory body. Because none of these programs, Bo, are unified under one roof, right?
No.
So why would
Bama doesn't care, Georgia doesn't care, Ohio State,
Southern Cal cares. Yeah.
Texas, A&M, LSU. I mean, Lane is both right and wrong, and that's okay. Obviously, Ole Miss can load the boat and fund a fund at a very high level.
Yeah, higher than most of the teams in the country,
no question.
But not higher than the teams that you have to play. That's the problem. Right? Like, you can be 20th in the country, but 9 of the teams that you're ahead of you are in your division. Or
does Ole Miss find someone who is committed, or a group that's committed to funding it? I mean, the interesting part of this is they just landed the number one transfer portal class.
I mean, Morgan Freeman goes to basketball games. He's got money.
No, I'm talking about way more money. I'm talking about I'm talking about guys with $500, $700, $800, $1 million and so on.
What's Katy Perry doing?
Like if I mean, you think of super boosters that are willing to throw in millions of dollars a year. I don't know. Anyway, Lane Train, I love it. I love that he's being vocal, that he's throwing it out and letting people kind of see what they think about it and have an opinion on it. But he just landed the number one transfer portal class, and he's still sitting there going, dude, what are we going to do? I don't know. Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Dave Bartoo at 9:30 on the Corona Premier guest line.